What's up, everybody? You're watching Wildcat MTG, and unlike Wizards Fireside Chat, this Fireside Chat is for you. Welcome back, everybody. So, I've been relatively quiet on M30. I have a lot of thoughts on it. I really haven't discussed it on channel too much before, and I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of talk about today this recent fireside chat that took place with the CEO of Hasbro, Chris Cox, as well as the president of Wizards of the Coast, Cynthia Williams. And so they recently appeared on this fireside chat, or had this fireside chat with UBS. It's and I wanted to dive into that. I want to talk a little bit more about what this is and what this means for us as players of Magic the Gathering, as collectors, and then of course as investors in the game. Let's step back for a moment before we dive into things. I think I spent a lot of time listening to that. I went back and I listened to that fireside chat probably 3 or 4 times now, and just kind of took some notes on it, trying to do some reading between the lines. And I think we should kind of start out with what a fireside chat really is, and not to dive too far into American history here, but that term fireside chat was really made popular by when FDR would sit and people would sit around the radios at night, and he would reach out to the American people and have these what we call fireside chats, what we now popularize that term. And at the time, he was using it to communicate with the American people on a broad scale, because there was a lot of things going on, the Great Depression primarily, and he would use that to really calm people's nerves, to give them reassurances that things were going to get better. And so when we talk about what a fireside chat really is, understanding the very nature of that term is to give reassurances, to give, some sort of reassurance as to everything's going to be okay. And I think that in and of itself, that term, that fireside chat term, really does speak volumes about where this communication, where it originates from, why it spawned. A little bit more about, the origination of this fireside chat here that Hasbro recently had, and whom they met with. This company, UBS. It's actually it's a multi-international investment bank. I think it's based out of Switzerland. Huge bank in Europe. But I want to emphasize that point of it being an investment bank, and to have that sort of meeting. When I say that, that fireside chat isn't for you, and it's not for me either, because it wasn't meant for us. It was meant to reach out, to speak to investors in Hasbro, people that are carrying Hasbro stock, people that might be potentially thinking about buying Hasbro stock. And it wasn't really meant for us as players. That's not who they were reaching out to. So let's talk about this a little bit more. One of the things I think that really drives this fireside chat is, one, that if you look at the Hasbro stock, everything is down right now, but Hasbro stock is down 44% over the last rolling 12 months. That is obviously a huge dip in value. And yes, everything is down right now, but on the back of this, I'll stop short of calling M30 a debacle. Maybe I wouldn't be wrong to call it that, though. Part of it is I think we did make some noise as a community. I'm always hesitant to use that word, community. I think Magic, it sometimes gets overused. But, for the first time in as long as I can remember, you have these opposing sides between players and investors in the game, and usually they find themselves on opposing ends. And leave it to Wizards to figure out a product that was going to galvanize the two sides, and we got that with this M30, the 30th edition product, a product of proxies that they were selling for $999 plus tax for all of 4 packs. And, in my opinion, just a really tone-deaf product. It doesn't speak to anybody. I don't know who it was for. I don't know who it was intended to reach out to, or who was supposed to find it to be cool. But I think it missed the mark on a lot of different aspects. And for the first time in a really long time, I think that we were able to, as a community, speak with our wallets, to vote with our wallets, and really vote down a product that was, quite frankly, outrageous in my opinion. So I do think that Hasbro felt a little bit of pressure, and is feeling a little bit of pressure, and they felt the need to quell some of those fears by having this fireside chat where they were meeting with, essentially having an interview conducted with a large multinational European bank to speak to investors, to talk to potential, stockholders and potential stockholders, to let them know, hey, everything's going to be okay. On this call, which was about 42 minutes in length in total, they talked about the Hasbro's blueprint. They called it Blueprint 2.0, and this is this concept that they've been implying and employing use of for some time now, where it's really about taking and I think they quoted around 1,500 IPs that they have, and dwindling that down and dwindling their focus down to just 8 to 10 brands that they want to stay focused on, Magic being one of them. They want to be consumer focused and disciplined, as I think is the term that they used when focusing on those particular products and IPs. So in essence, Hasbro is essentially redoubling down on Magic the Gathering, leading the way, and then a bunch of this call was focused on Dungeons and Dragons as well. MTG is by far their largest brand right now. They did state as much right now, and I want to quote some facts here, so I'm looking down here. They mentioned that the average tabletop Magic player is 30 years old, but that their player range is between 13 and 45 for tabletop. They said that 1/3 of their players have 3 years or less of experience with the game, but 1/3 of their players have 10 plus years. It's an interesting breakdown, right? And analytics are a big portion of this, and please believe that Wizards knows their stuff when it comes to this. They've been taking surveys forever. They've been monitoring our average spend. They do a really good job of understanding who their players are, although I think that they missed the mark really badly with this 30th edition. They mentioned that casual players represent 80% of their player base, while their competitive only spans about 20% of their base. They talked about some overlapping trends, but I really want to dive into the meat and potatoes of this, because upon going back and listening to this Fireside Chat again, I caught some things on the second and third go around that I didn't initially notice that I think were really, really interesting. One of the things they talked about was how they've segmented their player base. And what they mean by that is that they have doubled down on really diving into who their casual players are, who their collectors are, and they're trying to make products that appeal to different people. Growing up with Magic, one of the things, Magic set releases used to be these huge events, right? Like, because we were only getting a few sets a year. And so every set release was this event. And one of the things they're doing by segmenting and reaching out and building products for their particular segments of player base is they're building or attempting to build products specific to those segments. We've heard now time and time again, whether it be from their PR people or from Mark Rosewater or some of the other higher ups at Wizards, that buy the products that speak to you, interact with the products that appeal to you. And that's very, very interesting. It's a very, very different approach than we are used to. And coming from somebody who is, wants to invest in the game, it used to be set comes out, you buy some product, you open some for yourself, of course, and then you buy some, and if you wanted to invest in a long term, you buy some of the sealed product and you sit on that, and you did that with every set, and over time, it would tend to go up in value. And I think as people that are interested in investing in the game, that we have to take a little bit of a different approach going forward, because what they're going to put out is going to far exceed what most of us are capable of keeping up with. And that's a harsh reality, but they've said that by stating that they're making products that they believe are appealing to different segments. So they're openly stating to us, this product might not be for you. Skip it if you feel the need to. We don't care. And I think that's harsh for us to hear, but as far as attaining value and getting value from cards and from sets, as people who are interested in investing in the game, I think that's something we're going to have to be very cognizant of going forward. Some interesting stuff that I thought they put on here is that they plan to continue to grow Magic in 2023 and beyond. Duh, right? No kidding. They commented on the fact that their new player acquisition strategy is based on universes beyond and the success of their secret layers. I don't think we ever doubted that. I think we pretty much put our finger on that and knew it from the beginning. But basically, they're openly stating that that's how they are growing their player base, by taking and integrating different IPs into Magic the Gathering that appeal to different people to try and draw in new people, new blood, if you will. I also think it says a lot that their average tabletop person is 30 years of age. Usually that's a little bit more advanced in terms of where they are financially. I think that that's where they like it, because those people are typically into past the job stage and more into the career stage where they will have disposable income. I think that that's a comfortable slot for them, but I still think that they recognize a need to start young and continue to grow from that point. So they need to bring in IPs that people are interested in, which is why I think we're seeing more of Stranger Things, Assassin's Creed, video game IPs and things like that, because they're trying to reach also a younger player base as well. Some interesting things here, and they talked about the pillars of growth, and I'm going to kind of skip past some of that because I think while there's some interesting stuff in there, I really want to get into the meat and potatoes, the things that probably didn't sit well with us as Magic players, as the community, as investors, as the people that are really entrenched in this game and want to see it succeed, that we feel probably pretty insulted after listening to that Fireside Chat, is that it was asked. There's the talk about the claim of, I want to see, I wrote down the exact quote was printing too many cards. Now, I will say, the interviewer and the people listening to, the people that they're talking to are not going to be well versed in Magic, right? Like right from the get-go, when Cynthia Williams is defining what Magic is, she's basically reading almost verbatim from the Magic the Gathering Wikipedia page, like dead on. She's describing the game to people who have no idea what the game is about, what the sets are, yada yada, right? So like nothing in there is geared towards us. They're speaking in generalities to people that they want to pull in money into the stock. And so when the question was asked, it was specifically stated as printing too many cards. I think the trouble with that question and the way it's being asked is that it can mean a couple of different things. Are you overprinting the cards that are coming from the sets, or are you just printing too many cards in general, too many sets? And the way it's answered is kind of a little bit vague in that, most releases are print to demand. Okay, fair. Most of our post-launch sales quantities remain unchanged in 2022 compared to 2021. So she's specifically citing only the last 2 years of data. And what I think is really interesting about that is that, listen, we know that during the pandemic, a lot of people, our disposable income went to a different place because we couldn't spend money on things like going to the movies or going out and doing other activities that required spending of money, taking vacations. And so there was a lot more money, and there was also a lot more money infused into at least the US economy. And so a lot of that flowed over into 2021 expenditures. So we were spending money on things because we had extra disposable income in households that doesn't exist in the same way in 2022. And they're saying that it hasn't seen a drop off from 2021, which I think is really interesting because that's such a small time frame of data, right? Back to the idea of printing too many cards. She says, in aggregate, it's a misunderstanding of our business. That's kind of insulting, right? Like a misunderstanding of your business. Well, we live this. Like we play this game all the time. We play this game, day in and day out. And to say that we don't understand, quite frankly, it's tone deaf. It's the best I can describe it. It's absolutely tone deaf. One of the things I will say is the question that is asked, and I thought was really interesting, is Chris Cox specifically says at one point that they are trying to increase share of wallet. I think if you're not quite familiar with a lot of financial terms, it sounds weird. It sounds rude. It sounds like they're trying to reach into your wallet specifically. And I will say that wallet share is a financial term. If you were in the credit card industry, one of the things you might hear is top of wallet. And what we mean by wallet share is, if somebody, how many credit cards does somebody have in their wallet? And if you want to be top of wallet, that means that you want to be one of the first cards, one of the top 1 or 2 cards that somebody is most likely use in a sea of 5 or 6 or more credit cards that might be in that person's wallet. How are you defining yourself as a business so that the consumer is using your card? And so wallet share simply means that, right? Is that, money is being spent all across the board, for various things that we spend our money on as consumers. So wallet share means that they are basically trying to increase the amount of money that is coming out of your wallet and going into, theirs. One of the things that I missed on the first pass of that Fireside Chat and I honestly I completely missed it, was the interviewer actually does specifically ask, secondary market prices of cards decreasing as a result of those overprinting. Is that something that you keep track of and or are concerned about? And I actually didn't notice that question the first time around. I think it was just because I was so dismayed by the previous sentence of this president of WotC saying that we don't understand their business. But she replied with, Magic is a deep and strategic game, played in a variety of ways that, as stated previously, the goal is to grow player base. We print and reprint product to meet demand. Magic will be the first billion-dollar brand this year, and we're growing it ahead of the industry. More often than not, we get it right. Like Universes Beyond 40K, which is already on its third reprint. Sometimes we listen to feedback like we did on our 30th edition, where we scaled back supply to assure a great collector experience. And while it might not have been good for them in the short term financially, they believe that it was better for the brand overall. A lot of double speak there, right? Like a lot of just glossing over the actual question at hand. And what I think was interesting is she did go on to say, we do understand that some players focus on the collectible trading aspects, and they define collector. They're very careful to define collector a certain way as somebody who cares about the aesthetics of a card, somebody who is interested in special treatments, etc., and not so much as somebody who is investing in the game. But for the first time during the interview, the president of WotC does get a little bit more in depth than I probably heard them get when discussing secondary market value ever before, and that is, we understand that some players focus on the collectible trading aspects. We're always glad to see players enjoying and valuing MTG for years after initial release, but we don't participate in secondary market activity for Magic products, nor derive any revenue from trading or selling. What we do hear from some of our WPN stores that trade and sell cards, like any market, some products and individual cards can be more collectible and values can change over time due to a multitude of external factors, many of them entirely unrelated to the number of cards printed. I take a lot of issue with that. To say that it has nothing to do with the printing of our cards, it's mostly due to external factors. Complete garbage. Like, to not recognize that the number of times that you print a card, and that's why it's not specifically discussed. Overprinting cards can mean a lot of different things, but you think about how often cards are showing up now, right? They might not print a card for a decade, and then they print it for the first time. They use it to elevate the hype around a set, and then after they print that card, they open up the floodgates, and they'll hammer that card into another 2 or 3 sets within a 2-year span, and it completely depresses the value of that card. Whereas that was what they were using to generate excitement from the set that they were trying to hype up 2 years ago. And now they just hammer the reprint value of that. To say that it's not being driven by overprinting a card is just nonsense in my opinion. And to not also take any sort of level of accountability responsible and saying, oh, well, we don't actually pay attention to the secondary market. We don't participate in that. Whereas I kind of disagree with that and say that secret layers are exactly that. You know what secondary prices are. You're actually building secret layers that are usually, more often than not, based around the value of that versus the secret layer price point. It's almost always that way, right? Where the price point of the secret layer just happens to be within like plus or minus $5 of what the cards from the set might cost you otherwise to buy individually as singles. And to say that like they don't have any indications. We have no indication that there's been broad negative changes to interest in trading or post-purchase selling of Magic products. It could be easy for someone who is unfamiliar with our pre-release sales strategy to draw a negative conclusion about changes in resale values shortly after release. Okay. It is common and expected for those secondary market values to shift dramatically immediately following the release, and that is simply supply catching up with demand. Now, some of those weren't direct quotes. It was paraphrasing a little bit, but a lot of those were pretty close to exactly what she said. And to say that, in fairness, she's right. Like, one of the things that she said is, to some degree, that, hey, if the prices on the products of our cards, of our products, go up immediately after release, then we haven't done a good job of supplying the market with meeting the demand, because we're not putting cards into the hands of players that actually want those cards. That's fair. But the other thing she doesn't acknowledge is that what's also not cool is watching your set come out and then within a span of 6 months having it depreciate in value by like half, 50% of what it was costing to buy a box, a sealed box at release, and then seeing them flood the market on Amazon or some other channel for 50% of the value as people are just trying to fire sale them to get whatever they can back. My big takeaways from all of this is that one of the things, as I kind of mentioned in bringing this thing full circle here, that we're going to have to adapt to and become a little bit more savvy on. And again, it used to be Magic releases were a big event. And now we have between your tentpole releases and your what they'll call micro releases, right? They're going to have those 6 tentpole releases plus all the product SKUs that come along with them, plus the micro releases and all the products that come along with them, plus the secret layers, and however many of those come along per year, that we as Magic players and as investors are going to have to be more selective about what we buy. It's impossible to keep up for most of us with buying draft boxes and set boxes and collector boxes. And forget those jumpstart set boxes, like for the actual individual sets, those are just whatever, plus commander decks, right? So one of the things that we're going to have to be a little bit more cognizant of is value of those products and valuing and sourcing them out pre-release and understanding Wizards means it when they say this product might not be for you, because they're leaning hard on segmentation. They're trying to build out products that they believe are geared towards specific segments of their customer base, and they meant it when they say this product just might not be for you. And I think that's a lot for us to think about. I think that's something that we're going to have to keep in mind, and we'll see where this thing goes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't sound like Wizards is planning on slowing down. So take that for what you will. We'll have more conversations about this in the future. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I appreciate it. And if you did like this video, if you like the conversation, I'm interested in having more of them. There will be more of them. And so do me a favor. If you're not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button for me, hit that like button for me, and by all means, drop me some comments. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Be well, everybody.